Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast series, the Spotlight Sessions here at HighLevel. In these sessions, we showcase the top leaders in marketing and sales. Today, I'm joined by Charles Leikauf, the founder of the Profit Surge Group. Charles and his team help accountants move from the old way of in-person brick-and-mortar of way of doing business to the new way of growing an online accounting firm, all with using SaaS. And in this episode, we've put together some talking points to support that success he's having. This episode is called Growing Your Accounting and Bookkeeping Business with SaaS Mode. In this episode, we're going to dive into these three topics, and these three topics will help you get started in rebranding and re-strategizing how you do business. First one is building your brand. Second topic we're going to be discussing is promoting your brand. And lastly, we'll be finishing up strong with how to systemize your brand. Charles, it's great to have you here. We've been going back and forth. We met at the Build Your Brand event, which was a fun, amazing time. And for those in our audience that have not had the privilege of yet meeting you, do you mind sharing a little bit about your story and your journey in business?
Awesome. Perfect. Well, John, thank you so much for having me on. It was really great to connect with you at the event. I know we've been talking a little bit back and forth. So happy to be here. It's really kind of funny how I fell into what I'm doing now. It was kind of an accident. And I got a funny story. About 2017, I worked for a really large company. Worked in finance there, like 400,000 employees, like really large company. And I always wanted to start my own business, but I didn't really know what. I had some finance skills, but I wasn't sure how to do it. And my wife one day met this lady in a Facebook group who needed help with her finances, budget, forecast, like kind of some easier financial help. And so she's like, what, you should send this lady a message. I think like you've been trying to work for yourself, travel, have more kind of flexibility, because she worked for herself. And I was like, no, it's not going to be worth my time. And so I was like, nope. And I just put her off. And the next day I get home from work and she's like, hey, did you message that lady? No, look, I'm too important. I'm too smart. Like whatever, just like the arrogance of it. So I say no. And the third day I come home from work and she's like, Charles, just message this lady. And so out of frustration, I send the lady a message. I met her in a Facebook group and I was like, hey, I have all this experience. I can help you with your finances. I see you have a problem with your budget. She owned like an advertising agency. And so I book a call with her. And during my lunch break, while I was at my job, I went into like one of the little phone like conference rooms, and I get in and I take the call with her, and it was like a financial problem that I could solve. It was nothing crazy. She was in a completely different state on the other side of the country. And at the end of the phone call, I told her a price that I thought was insane. I wanted to get her off the phone. I was just like, I'll tell her something so absurd. She has to say no. And so I was like, all right, it'll be, $7,500 a month for 3 months, just paid the day, just waiting for her to get off. And she goes, okay. Oh my gosh. All right. I don't even have a way to charge a credit card. I don't have like a calendar link. I don't like have any of the stuff like ready, but I knew like I needed something. So I remember I like wrote down her credit card information, and I went back. And so what's that? $23,000. That was on like a Friday. Made a Stripe account on Monday. I charged her credit card, worked for her for the next 3 days. And that's where I found out, maybe this whole internet consulting finance thing, like maybe this is where I want to be. And so I've been doing that since 2017. I call myself the accidental fractional CFO. And over the last year or two, I've also helped other people kind of go from the old way of growing an accounting firm to the new way, which I kind of found by accident. So that's how the heck I got here. Funny story. Also, if your wife gives you advice, listen to her. Listen to her the first time.
I love it, man. And when you first told me that story, it was I could relate in so many different ways where, to your point, your wife tells you something, you're like, honey, not right now, like, because you're in your flow, you're in your world, and you just want to shut that world off and not talk about it when you're home or it's the weekend. And she's like, oh, you got to do this, right? So what a blessing. What a blessing that was. And do you mind sharing a little bit of what you were doing before you got into business for yourself?
So I worked for one of the largest companies on the planet. I worked in a finance position. And so, financial analysis, budgets, forecasts. I mean, eyeballs deep in Microsoft Excel every day. How do I make manufacturing facilities more profitable? Like, you want to talk like the corporate slave, I work 85 hours a week, typing like this the whole time. That that was me. And I wanted to get out of it. I read all the educational business books and entrepreneurship, this and that. And I just went back and forth and I didn't know what to do. And I fell into this luckily, but like typical route, went to a good school, went to University of Florida, worked for Siemens, worked for Tech Data. There's some large companies.
Hmm.
Um, but I knew I was made for something more. I didn't know what it was. I didn't hate my job, but like I wanted the time freedom. I wanted the location freedom.
Hmm.
And so working for myself afforded me those, but I just like it was really hard finding that path. You know what I mean? Like I lucked into it. So that's why I'm grateful I took her advice of talk to that lady in the Facebook group.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, right? That are in that same situation now. Like they are in the trenches, and they are really good at what they do in the trenches, and they have a loyalty to where they're at because they have their ethics. Their position's been good to them. They
Mhm.
maybe enjoy the people that they work with, and sometimes because of that, that becomes extra noise when you don't look outside. So, I mean, before, your wife made this forced introduction, I mean, were you looking around for other work and other things to do outside of your career?
I mean, I was, and I tried a couple things. Like you're gonna laugh, but I owned a maid service that I ran like remotely for a little bit. I
Mhm.
tried drop shipping. I was not good at that. I tried so many other things, like another e-commerce venture. I tried a whole bunch of different things.
Okay.
Um, and I was looking around, but like I didn't realize I should have just gone off the thing that I was already good at instead of doing all these other things that I wasn't good at already. But I didn't know I could turn that skill like into a business. Like it just that way of thinking just was new to me. I was like, only big companies can afford this. And so
Yeah.
that's where I was wrong.
Yeah. And I think, I agree with you. I could see how you could feel that way. Before software tech, this stuff really came out and became mainstream, you
Hmm.
know, before it was democratized, right? And everyone had a fair chance to develop something affordable or, partner with a company to resell it. It was really the big companies only that had technology. And leveling out the playing field for small to medium sized businesses were those businesses that brought that big technology to local markets. That being said, when it comes to accounting firms, bookkeeping
Hmm.
groups, firms, what kind of what kind of competition is out there for the small to medium sized version of in that industry?
Like competition, like against each other.
Yeah, like for example, franchise wise or corporation wise, right? Like
Mm.
let's say like H&R blocks. Like would an H&R block have an impact on a smaller independent CPA accounting firm in a local market? Do they take up a lot of that business or could they?
So yes and no.
Hmm.
And here's kind of why. Um, H&R Block, I'm sure is fine. I've never had them do my taxes, so this is not an endorsement of them, but I'm sure they do an okay job.
Hmm.
I'm sure they do fine. You can go to TurboTax and you can do all that stuff
All these
yourself.
sites. Yeah, absolutely.
You can do that. However, is that an expert who knows you? Is that somebody whose phone number you can call? Can you sit down with them either in person or in Zoom and get better sort of advice? I don't really know. They're not really like specialists. So I help e-commerce companies become more profitable. Like that's what I do for the fractional CFO piece.
Hmm.
So H&R Block can't do what I do, right? You can't do what I do with TurboTax. Like I can increase their cash flow, their profitability, and I know all the best vendors and everyone else. So like I'm an expert in that field. And so if you're a small accounting firm, if you're willing to just work with anybody and do any kind of thing, well, how are you different than TurboTax or H&R Block? You're just a
Mm.
commodity and you're just, it may even be a bigger pain in the butt to go to you than it is just me to do it myself or go to H&R Block and do it. And so if you're selling the same service and doing the same thing as everybody else, massive competition because it's a commodity. Like you're buying corn. I don't know the difference between corn here and corn there, but I go to the grocery store. If it's a different price at a different grocery store, and as long as there's nothing weird on it, I'm getting the cheaper one. When you
I,
move away from commoditizing yourself and you serve a certain group and like a niche, an audience, like a certain type of person, and you
Mhm.
move to more of that like value added services like financial advice or investment advice or insurance or all the other things, well, then you're not in competition with them because you do something fundamentally different. And it's just how do you show yourself as that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's what I was hoping to hear, right? Because right, sometimes we form our own opinions based on what we experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen these different franchise tax accounting businesses that come up seasonally. I've seen also like the others you've mentioned that are online that you could do it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
all those, right? And you just brought some clarity around, well, they're going to keep doing what they're doing and they're going to attract the general public because they have those marketing dollars to do so. They're
Yeah.
being seen. And I asked that to then pivot to this part, which is if you are a smaller boutique or a personal, local, face to face, or even a person that spends more time with their clients,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go about building that brand and telling that story to stand out in that busy market that you may be in?
Okay. Well, there's a couple things that are kind of changing. I'm sure you've heard this, but the amount of trust that we have in each other, in other people and companies is it's like an all-time low, right? People don't want to buy companies, they want to buy people. They don't want to buy commoditized service, they want to buy something just for them. And to me, that's really powerful. And so when I think about like we met at a personal branding event, right? It's true you need it. That's why I was there. And so how if I'm a small firm, it's how do I position myself as not just big faceless accounting firm or small faceless accounting firm, but how do I say, hey, I'm Charles, I own this firm, I get your pain points, I get your problems. I am the best in the world at solving this problem for this type of customer. So you can go to H&R Block, but you're gonna get a commoditized product. Here, you're gonna get like a high quality service and I'm going to understand you. And so you're having a personal brand is a requirement now, right? You're not KPMG or Ernst and Young, you're not one of the massive accounting firms that's 400,000 employees. Like you don't have a business brand. You're not Nike. Like you got to develop a personal brand and people want to know who they're doing business with, right? I'm giving you my own personal financial information. Like that's kind of scary, you know? So building a personal brand is super important nowadays. And maybe 10 years ago, that wasn't even a thing. Maybe even 5 years ago, it was kind of becoming a thing. Now,
That's what I feel. I feel like
mhm,
it was about that 5 year mark you hit on the dot where it's like, I would see, Facebook groups, I would see people, posting maybe some flyers where they were attending a chamber of commerce event. They had maybe some photos at a vendor table, or maybe they had a party, a holiday party. But I now see more and more of personality, teaching, storytelling, personalities out and about, walking their dogs at the beach, showcasing their themselves as a whole, and then mentioning or making it obvious they do accounting or
mhm.
bookkeeping or financial services. Was that about the same time for you? Like when did you start noticing the shift
Let,
personally?
let's see here. I mean, 5 years would be, yeah, 2019, right around there, right around 2020, 2019. And it gets more and more apparent every single year, right? I think that's when the shift started was about that time. But now, like then it was like, oh, that was a bonus. Now, to be honest, it's a requirement. I mean, like look at you at high level, like you have your own personality, right? Like in every single kind of business, large or small, people buy people and people trust people. And like we're at a point where that's super important. If you don't have it, you're kind of losing out, to be honest.
Yeah. And obviously us talking about it, bringing it top of mind to someone that may not see that being a priority in their business. Maybe they're doing okay.
Mhm.
And this is and for any business, right? That is outside of accounting, bookkeeping. Let's say they're an attorney. Let's say they're just watching this because we popped up on a related keyword. But if you have a business, you need to have a personal brand, and people need to look you up and know who you are, and maybe hear how you talk or how you showcase yourself.
Mhm.
Are we on the same page on that?
100%.
So how does somebody that is scared to do so, or unsure how to do so, like what advice would you give, or what framework would you share? Like, here's how you can get started and build upon.
So you see me smiling and laughing because whenever you start, it's going to be scary. Like I don't want to say it'll be easy or it's not something you're used to. Like putting your face out on the internet is scary. Like I'm just going to be honest. When you first put your stuff out there, you're like, "Oh, it's not that good," but what if they don't like it? What if this? What if that? Well, like the first time you put something out on the internet, it isn't going to be good. I promise you that. So we don't have to figure that. It's not going to be good. But you also don't have an audience, so nobody's going to see it, so it doesn't matter. um, so like even today, if you go to my Instagram account, right, like Profit Search Group, there I post every single day. There's an edited video of me. I don't watch half of them because I'm like, oh, I can't look at my face. Like I don't want to see it. And so the first piece of advice is get out there. It will be bad. That's okay. The second piece is by the time you do it enough, which is hopefully every day, by the time you get good, people will start to see it then. And that is really where you want to go. But if you don't get enough practice, you won't start attracting the right people. And so that's the first piece of advice is do it. It'll be bad. It gets better. When it gets better, you'll finally get people towards you. The next thing is when you're your real self on the internet. This is super important. When you are your real self on the internet, it pushes people who you won't want to do business with away, right? It pushes people away who you actually don't want, and it only lets in the people that you want. And you might be thinking like, oh, well, like, what if I push some customers away? Like, what is there, 340, 380 million people in America? Like, you're not going to service them
Yeah,
all. You get 1%. What is that? 3.4, 3.8 million?
that's not a that's
one
great.
one
I'll
person
take
out of
that all
100
day.
has to not hate you. So don't worry about pushing people the wrong way. So like on my business account, like I play pickleball. I will post that I played pickleball with my wife and with my friends. And you might be like, oh, he's an accountant. Why, like, what does that have to do with any of this other stuff? But realize like some people see it like, oh, Charles is active. I like that about him. Or, I resonate because I play pickleball too. And I know that sounds silly, but if you're yourself, you're going to attract people who you're going to want to work with. And that's great. That makes things so much easier. And so don't be afraid to be yourself because there are people like you who want your services somewhere online. And because you're not stuck to your local geography, it makes it a lot easier and you'll find those people. So that's what I would do is don't be afraid and be yourself are like the first two most important things. By the time you got enough reps in, like you'll understand and you'll be good, but it takes a little bit.
Yeah, and you had mentioned it, before. It's a trust factor. Right now, there's a higher demand for trust
Hmm.
and likability and just awareness of the person before they give you, whether it's a small ticket or a high ticket. It's like, I feel like society's mindset is like, prove it to me, show me what you got, sell me this pen. Like, who are you? Why should I do business with you? Like, it's just what? Yeah, what do you mean? Just I have a great service, buy it. Like that was like 1997 to 2019. Now it's like you're on audition, huh? You know. So the brand is more important than ever. And again, I think sometimes people start looking into like I need to do paid ads, or I'm not savvy enough, or people are gonna think of me differently. But then you also shared that you also show your personal side, which is you enjoy playing pickleball. You showcase your family a little bit,
Hmm.
right? So it's not just business and sales pitches or information or just like workaholic style content. It's style, it's lifestyle, it's
Hmm.
humility, friendliness. How do you go about determining your tonality of what you want the world to know?
That's a really good question. How do I figure out my tonality of what I want the world to know? Um, when you're putting your message out there, I guess there's two schools of thought. And remember, like, I'm a fractional CFO slash teach accountants how to sell. So this is what works for me. It's different for everybody else. I'm sure there's a PR expert on here who'll be like, no, you have to say this. Um, that's probably not my person. That's okay. But you can try and be something you're not and be very curated of like what you put out in front of other people. And you can do that. You're like, oh, this is my lifestyle. We'll go with a silly example here, right? Like, this is my $50 million house, and this is my fancy car, and these are my 6 yachts, and whatever else. You can put that out there. That's nice, but that's plastic, right? Like, that's not real. Or you can put out what's real. And if you put out what's real, yeah, are there some embarrassing moments in life? Sure. But like, post, hey, I made a mistake. I did something silly. I tried this and it was awesome. I'm really excited about that. Because trust is like at an all-time low, people see through the plastic, people see through the fake. They just want something real. So I would just be yourself. And if you're talking about like curated experiences, is there a secret ratio of I need 80% professional and 20% personal? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is I can help people with a certain problem, and I talk about that problem a lot because that's what I can solve. I share some wins that clients have, and then I post kind of what's going on in my life. Because if I'm helping people grow their accounting firms, right? Well, do they want to grow a firm where they're working 24/7? Probably not, right? Usually the people who are working 24/7, maybe they have enough money, but they need time freedom. Well, if I don't have any time freedom and I'm not showing that in my personal brand, what do they want from me? Right. And so it kind of solves it a bunch of different ways, but be yourself, be real, be authentic. And the people who actually resonate with you will come and everyone else won't. And like, that's okay. You want that. Because I don't know if you've ever worked for someone or had a customer who was like, oh gosh, like, why did I take this guy's or gal's money? I don't want this. Like, can I end this
Absolutely.
engagement? So how about what if that guy or gal never called you? How much easier would your life be? And I'm sure somebody listening now is thinking about a client. They're like, I really
Absolutely.
wish I could fire the client.
Charles, you hit it on the dot, man. I mean, I'm dancing around this a little bit here with you, man, because
Mhm,
it's a topic that's flown by quickly because people don't want to put the work in, the time, the thought
mhm,
process, the creativity, and at very least the minimum effort. And what you're saying is real clear. How you started was you created a couple videos authentically about what you do, what you're passionate about doing, the problem in the market, how you help solve it, and then you added some personality and fun while you're out and about. And
mhm.
over time, they look great now. I mean, I've seen some of you're doing paid ads, you're doing different organized campaigns, master classes, like, but that was the long game that you built over time. But for the person that's listening now that's not doing anything, like just get out there little by little. I want to just finish up this topic with a question around social media platforms.
Mhm.
Which social media platforms do you devote most of your time for your audience?
So I'm a big Instagram guy. I like Instagram. I think that's even, like where you and I chat back and forth. You kind of laugh. You talk about paid ads. I'm sure I'm bombing you with my ads every day.
I
Sorry, not
enjoy them, man,
sorry.
because they're full of content and it's a personality and the creativity behind it. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Um, I really like Instagram personally. Um, Everyone has their own kind of place that they like to hang out on. There's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's TikTok, there's YouTube. There's a whole bunch of different places. Um, if someone's just kind of starting out and they're like, well, which one do I go on? If you're just starting out, just pick one. Just pick one. If you do 5 things at once, it's probably not going to be good. So if you're just starting out, pick one and pick the one that you like to use. I know someone will usually say pick the one that your audience is going to hang on. Pick the one that you like to use, because if you don't like to use it, you probably won't do it. And doing it's more important than being optimal. If you want to talk to startup bros, yeah, LinkedIn's probably the place, right? Maybe much less Facebook groups. But at the end of the day, eyeballs are eyeballs, and most people are on most of these platforms in general. Not specifically, but in general. So do the one that you're actually going to do. get good at that. And then you can worry about the paid ads or the other locations, the other places. Pick the one that you like the most. For me, that happens to be Instagram. Because I know if it's on the other ones, I probably won't do it because I don't really enjoy them. I've got like 4 TikTok videos and I've got hundreds of Instagram videos. So there, you know what I mean? Just goes to show you I can't be in all places at all times. And if you're just starting out, you
Yeah.
definitely can't.
I agree. Yes, and I've heard that before from folks that are building successful brands. They are helping others. They are consistent, and they say, I started with one. It's been profitable for me. It's worth my time. I haven't thought about expanding out yet, but at some point maybe I will. Right? It's a nice to have, but the minimum you have the one that is bringing in the awareness. So I appreciate your insight on the building your brand, and that's typically like it's obviously the foundation is the confidence, taking the action, and being in the right place. For a business owner, and I want to transition from a business owner, and then I want to get into the financial services, accounting and
Mhm.
bookkeeping end of it. For a business owner to promote their brand, right? And when we say promote, sometimes people assume that it's just like posting Canva, creating a video and posting it. Um, I want to more dig a little deeper into stopping the scroll.
Okay.
Stopping the scroll. So, building a brand, promoting my brand to the point where they want to look at my video, they want to look at my website, they want to learn more about what I do for more than the 3 seconds that they normally would. How do you go about that, or what are some things that you've seen that caught your attention with how people promote their brand and earn your attention, keep your attention?
Okay. So one of the things that I've seen work really well, and I've seen this. Have you ever gone on Instagram or TikTok and you watch a video and you're looking at it and you're like, what the heck are they doing? All right. And I'm just going to keep watching. And you're like, huh? And then you're like, oh, okay. And so you want to generate curiosity, right? That doesn't mean like, I'm sure if you look on Instagram or, some of the other platforms, you see something absurd happens in the first quarter second, and then it goes to another video. So A, I'm not a super good video editor. B, I'm more funny in discourse, but I'm not like super slapstick silly. So that's not even my personality. But you drive curiosity. And so this is like a marketing kind of ninja kind of tactic, but there's something called an open loop. And so, I'll tell you about that in a second. And then, you go into another story, and that's an open loop. So the idea is you say, hey, I had this really crazy thing happen to me on Tuesday. You know, um, I got into a car accident. But first, let me tell you about this cheeseburger I ate. And you're like, well, how is the cheeseburger car accident? Like, what? And so you're going to keep watching. And so you just open things that drive curiosity, and someone will watch your video a whole lot longer. But at the end of it, make sure you satisfy the curiosity. Otherwise, you're going to have an angry person who's going to be like, I don't like this content, decline. Um, that's really helped. And so usually like I'll start off like, you know, uh, hey, I had this issue with this client, or I had, something crazy happen to me at work today. And then I'll get into something I'm trying to teach. And then I'll finish the funny story about something crazy that happened to me. And so that way they get entertained and they get a little bit of value. So that's been working for me recently. The videos that I do that on versus the ones that I don't, I get maybe like 50% more views. So, I mean, it's pretty substantial, and it takes like 2 or 3 seconds to think of like, all right, how do I drive some curiosity? So if you're looking for like a tactic you could try on a video tomorrow, business owner, accountant, personal brand, whatever, drive curiosity in the first like 3 seconds,
Mm.
whether it's through video or through audio or an image or a story, whatever, just curiosity.
Yeah, and then once you get that curiosity, um, when you're planning out or at least doing the best to be as organized as you can with your storytelling and your positioning for your brand, um, at what point do you like, what do you like, how do you keep that going? Right? Like,
Hmm.
because it's obviously it takes practice, but like,
Yeah.
let's say, you start with the open loop.
Hmm.
Right. And now, let's say I have a business now and I want to go from the open loop. What do I do next? Like, where do I transition and what should I transition to?
Okay. So for me, I really like stories. I don't know if you ever catch yourself listening to a song you don't like because they're telling a story and you're like, okay, like what's gonna happen next? right? People communicate, people understand in stories. So you start with an open loop to drive curiosity, and then
Mhm.
you go into a story about someone who had an experience with you. And so if I'm a
Okay.
business owner, right, I'd say, hey, I was working with this person, they had this result, they did these three things, and then now they have this result. So if you've ever seen like skincare or personal care ads or whatever else, or even fitness, you see like out of shape guy, then like, immediate six pack the next day, right? You want to show like a before and an after. And
Okay.
so I really like to do a story and I talk about the before portion and then the after portion. And it can be results for a client. It can be, interesting, like personal thing that you learned, right? Like kind of in the beginning, we talked about a story of I didn't know how to get clients on the internet and thought this was a waste of my time. And at the end of it, it was like, oh, shoot, I made this massive amount of money for me at the time on accident, right? So that's like before state, not having a fractional CFO firm, after state. And it's a real story. And so you have so many real stories in your daily life that you can just write down and go, all right, I'm gonna talk about this, or I'm gonna put this in an email or whatever else. And then in the end, you just kind of close up the loop and you satisfy that curiosity in the end, and they're gonna feel good and they're gonna want to share it with their friends or their family or their business partner or whoever. Um, if you follow that format, it's helped out a ton, and it's also kind of fun to make. It feels like a little video game. You're like strategizing. So that's what I
Mhm.
would do is tell stories.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And there's sometimes, when I listen to podcasts, or we get some feedback from our guests, like I
Mhm.
knew that I've done that before, but it just didn't quite work, or I didn't have the right KPIs or the right barometer of how to gauge its success, so I stopped doing it. Right. So I'm
Oh,
hoping
yeah.
that if the audience is listening to this when they're in between something, whether it's in the car, or they're at the gym, or they're just mowing the lawn while listening to the episode, if you've tried to market yourself before and you've tried one or two of these things, well, this is the nudge to go back what you were doing and just perfect it little by little by little, because you were on the right path. And for someone that is totally new to it, well, this is exactly the right time to get into this moment as promoting your business, whether it is an accountant, bookkeeper, just any business. Like,
Mhm.
trust factor is so low today. You need people want to relate to other people. And understanding that, and what you've shared and the insight you've given with the open loop and you storytelling, with now transitioning from just like building your brand on social media, putting yourself out there as a fun, likable person, how do you transition with the content to now educate, whether it's with a video on your website, whether it's a virtual event, live event, a webinar?
Mhm.
How do you go about promoting yourself and educating at the same time?
Okay. So nobody, how do I put this? Nobody likes to be sold to, right? If I come up to a stranger, right, in a bar and I'm like, "Hey, do you want to get married tomorrow?" They're going to think I'm crazy, right? And this is an example I've stolen from somebody else years ago when I was starting to learn marketing, but it still rings true today. But if I go up to someone at a bar and I'm like, "Hey, you sound kind of cool. Do you want to have a conversation?" And then they're like, "Hey, do you maybe possibly kind of sort of want to go on a date?" And then you date for 2 or 3 or 5 years, and then you get engaged, and then you get married. And so you don't just walk up to a stranger and be like, "Hey, let's get married tomorrow." And so when you're on the internet, if you just go up to somebody and go, "Hey, buy my stuff," okay, that's like the telemarketing calls that you get. Just click, you're gonna hang up the phone, and they're gonna close the browser, or unsubscribe or unfollow you or whatever else. And so you need to develop a relationship with them. So the first part is like, I like to give value. I like to give value. I want to give advice. I want to give a tip. Like,
Mhm.
if you go follow me on Instagram today, I will send you a message, be like, "Hey, I'm just curious, why'd you follow?" And then they go, "Oh, I want to grow my accounting firm or my bookkeeping firm, or I want to learn about what the heck is a fractional CFO." And so the first thing I do is I send them a free video. I go, "Here's a free video." So I know like HighLevel, you can put videos behind an opt-in or whatever. It's like, there's none of that. It's literally on the first page. I'm not asking even for your email. Like, here's a free video. I made this for you. Just value. And in the video, I'm not selling anything either. It's just, I'm teaching, just teaching. Here's some cool things. And then I say after that, "Hey, if this was helpful, um, let me know." Usually they respond, "Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you so much." I don't know if they actually even watch it or not. Sometimes they do. I hope they do. I mean, I put all that effort into making it. And then it just say, hey, if we could help you get to your goal of whatever they talked about before, would it be worth a quick conversation? And then you can bring them into your world. And then that's where you bring them onto your webinar or your sales call or whatever else. And so I like to give and don't expect, like some people, I send the video and they look at it and they go, cool, this is great. Nothing else happens. I'm not trying to sell them. It's just, I'm trying to give value. And so if you're putting content out there that resonates with people's problems, generates curiosity and solves some of those problems, and they go, if I'm getting all this stuff for free, if I'm getting all this education for free, what is it going to like to pay this guy? What is it going to be like to pay this girl? And that's where you want them to think. Because if I have to ram my product down your throat, A, it's not going to be a good business relationship. We're not going to like each other. B, it's probably not very valuable. And C, man, that is a lot of work. And so I like to give, and then be like, hey, if this was helpful and we can get you to your goal a little bit faster, would it be worth a quick conversation? And I have booked hundreds of appointments in that exact same sequence. And if people follow me, they will do the exact same thing and they'll just kind of smile and be like, oh, you told me about this. I did, it works. And that's the method I personally like to use is give 5 times more than you're asking. And then, then the relationship takes care of itself because you're doing the right thing and you just want to help other people. And like, they see that, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah. And I absolutely, it's not about you, it's about them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that we're talking about, it's not about you, it's about them. So we're building the brand for them to feel more comfortable, to understand what you do, how you can help, and if you're qualified. We're promoting the brand with our information videos, maybe snippets of parts of trainings, or information in depth on a service for them. When it comes to picking your avatar and speaking to your avatar through video content, how do you incite the need of having you without insulting, right? Like in your experience, right? That we know there's a problem, right? But like,
Does your life suck?
yeah, man. Like I don't, because I want to make sure that if someone new's watching this, like we don't want you to go on video and really just like let it all out here and really sting somebody with the issues they have. But obviously, we want to stop the scroll. We want to obviously get their attention. When you run your financial businesses, your accounting, your bookkeeping services, that is a little bit more of a delicate process. And this
Yeah.
also applies to maybe some health related businesses, maybe a chiropractor, physicians, dentists that are promoting themselves. What are some things that you keep in mind with how you position your brand online with your video assets and your posts?
Okay. So here's something that's really important. Kind of like you said earlier, if you make people feel bad, well, they may be in some short-term pain and they may show some decent KPIs. But is that a good long-term relationship? Probably not. And we like to be long-term focused instead of short-term because long-term always pays more and it feels better. And so if you go to my fractional CFO website, because I do fractional CFO services for e-commerce companies, there's something really interesting that I do there is I don't actually mention accounting or bookkeeping on like the page hosted by HighLevel. Like I don't do that. On a video, I say, are you a Shopify store owner with a revenue above this number who is struggling to scale, that your revenue goes up every month, but your bank account balance goes down and you don't know why? That is extremely specific. It's, I own a Shopify, or whatever store, right? Because my backend's easier to set up for those guys. Is your revenue above a certain number? So I know they're qualified to speak with me. Are you trying to grow? Is your revenue going up, but your bank account balance is going down and you don't know why? So that's a pretty big pain point. The nerdy explanation for that is you have to pay for inventory today, and then you get it in 3 months, and then you sell it in those 3 months. It means your bank account balance is going to go down if your revenue is going up. And so that's a normal problem. That's something I can fix. But the only person who's going to click on that is someone who has a problem that I can solve. And I'm the best in the world at solving that one specific problem for that specific type of client. And so that's how I do it. If I want to beat them overhead and berate them, do you feel dumb in your accounting or finance? Like, no, that doesn't work. I just talk about the pain point they're experiencing. And hey, if these are the things that's happening and if I can solve this for you, would it be worth a quick call? And so the other day I was doing analysis. I think you probably saw this in my story. We had a client who wrote his first, I know for some people it seems way out of mind, but like his first $100,000 check on inventory. And so that's really scary. And we provided the analysis to make sure that he's going to sell it on time in the next couple months. He's not going to run out of cash or, buy too much and not be able to sell it. We made sure he bought just the right amount. And so he found me through that video on that website. And that's literally the problem we're helping him fix right now. And I love solving that kind of problem. So if I were someone new listening, I would talk about the specific problems that you love solving and the type of person you love serving who has that problem, which is usually, what's your best in the world at, or usually a version of you a couple of years prior when you had that problem that you figured out. So that's what I would do.
That's the punchline. That right there sums up everything because, we didn't even talk about the other business you had, right? We didn't even brought that up yet. But it was relevant in the storyline, and that fractional CFO, I mean, you could probably easily add that same content on your other website and maybe talk about it on your social media, same amount of time. And maybe it doesn't affect your social media presence because you're talking financial services as a whole, but it affects the website and the
Huge.
marketing you're doing to it in a positive way because you've isolated, you've niched down, and you're making that whole page, that whole video about that problem. Powerful. And sometimes, we see, marketers, and we all have been in different stages where, we just want to get our message out there, and it's a minimal viable product, and maybe we A/B test a few things, but if it's general, then you're going to get a general response, if that. Niching down to what you shared is the key. Yeah, man. I got a half a page of notes already. I feel like I had to remind myself that we have an audience here. Don't send me an invoice, right? I promise you, these are questions that our community asks, they're curious about, and that this will help their software grow. This isn't for my personal use. So let's get into, we spent a lot of time on building the brand, promoting the brand. Some could argue that they're both the same thing in a way. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Depends on the eyes of the beholder. But let's go with the systemizing the brand. Could you share a little bit about your before and after with technology, and not even just like HighLevel as well. I'm just talking more about like, working maybe off of, a laptop versus a server, or maybe working off of an app versus, the computer. And then maybe organizing with a calendar link versus the notebook or the calendar, old school book. Like, what was that evolution like for you? And where is it at now?
Okay. So in the beginning, I told you on that call with the lady, I didn't even have a way to run her credit card, like at all. I didn't have a merchant processor. I didn't have a calendar link. Like I used hers. We showed up on her Zoom room. Like I had like, again, I was a guy who sent them a Facebook message of like, yeah, I can solve this problem for you. I've done these cool things. Let's have a conversation. So I started out with nothing. And if you're just getting started a couple of years ago versus today, it is so much easier. Now, one of the hard parts is it's so much easier today, but there's also so many other solutions. And so people get really bogged down of like, what's the best thing that hosts a calendar link? And do I do like a chat bot? And like, how do I host my website? And what's a funnel? And like, maybe I got to get this other email thing over here and this graphic design thing over there. And it's super inundating, right? I can imagine like we have people who, our goal is to grow their accounting firm, and they come on and they're like, Charles, I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about sales. I'm really good at what I do financially, but everything else, like I need help on. And so one of the cool things is HighLevel kind of solves all those problems for you. But the most important part is like, instead of having to look for what's the best calendar link, what's the best, email platform, how do I, determine what's the best CRM, like HighLevel has it also just use that. Like that's the easiest part. So that solves like your sales engine. Like, oh, you don't have to pay for DocuSign anymore because HighLevel has it. So go use that. You'll save yourself like 200 hours of just trying to find the right thing. Accountants are like me. I want to do the best thing, so I'm going to do all the research. Well, they already built it. Just go use it. So that's part A. Part B is I originally started and it was off my like work laptop. Like it was off of my work laptop. I would just take it home and, tinker around it at night and do my work then. Or maybe during my lunch breaks or other calls. Anyhow, so I started off with that, and like you can do that, now like I'm talking to you through like a fancy camera and I've got some lights and a microphone and like we evolve over time, and that's okay. But if you want to get started, all you need is a laptop and a cell phone. That is all you need. You need a way to take payments and a way to schedule some things. So a couple pieces of software, a laptop and a cell phone, and you can get to revenue numbers where you'll be very happy and you won't have to worry about money with just those few things.
Yeah. And
After
with
that,
being,
then we can worry about all the other fancy stuff.
yeah. And now with how you operate, in your for let's just talk about your accounting and bookkeeping business, helping those folks that are doing it an older way, transitioning. When they talk about like, I use QuickBooks or I use Intuit and that's all I need. When you look at systemizing your brain, just let's scenarioize here that I'm somebody, your ideal client. I have a location in person. I want to go online, right? How do I get started with going online? Like, do I just need the QuickBooks? Like, how do you like crash course? Like, how do you get me in the right direction?
Sure. So the first thing is, if you want to get clients who are not stuck to your local geography, who are probably paying you way too low, right? You gotta open up your market. So you probably have to go all of the United States. Then you're going to find the people who attract you. So the first thing is you got to get on the internet. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, choose one, right? Maybe two, like maybe Facebook, Instagram, but choose one or two of those. Start getting out there and start talking about the problems that you've been solving, probably for a really long time. That's step one. Step two is, after you build some value and you build some trust, start asking those people to have a conversation with you, right? So if you're contributing on Facebook groups, so maybe I help construction companies become more profitable and do their accounting. Maybe I'm giving away free advice in a Facebook group. Well, in 1 month later, right, people are gonna be like, wow, Charles is an expert. He knows all about construction accounting. I go, people start to send you messages and questions themselves. You won't have to sell them. They'll come to you. And that's the cool part. Well, at that point, you need a calendar link. Okay, well, throw that on, like get GHL. There's a calendar link in that. All right, so that works out. Maybe eventually you've built up a decent business. Maybe now you're running some ads. Maybe you got some salespeople. Maybe you're really big. All right, then you build your website. Then you get salespeople running through it. Then, it kind of scales. But the first thing is get online, get on a social platform, get a website built, get a calendar link, and just start getting in front of people. A lot of accountants, maybe they're terrified to get their message out there, but once they get their message out there, they're terrified to actually talk to people. But you kind of have to talk to people to turn them into new clients so you can help them. And so you just need a systemized process to do it. And the more the technology does the heavy lifting, the less heavy lifting you have to do, the less following up manually you have to do. So emails and text messages and all that stuff you can automate. You want to spend all of your time serving clients or signing on new clients, not following up, not trying to build like another website, not trying to figure out all this stuff. You just want to focus on serving people. Let the technology take care of all that other stuff for you. So that's what I would do if I was like starting from zero.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that could also apply to any business, right? If if you're looking to do, virtual medicine, you're looking to do virtual coaching, you're looking to do, maybe some training of some sort. You could do that with that foundation. So not
Mm-hmm.
just for bookkeeping, accounting in general. With so many different softwares out there, we're happy to have you as our customer.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, like you mentioned some pain points that people get frustrated over, which is like the following up, the emailing, just the manual, tedious work. How do you leverage a high-level platform to do that for you? Because there's so many ways to do it. Like, what are some of your favorite? What's a favorite feature or favorite process that you could always lean on there that is your go-to?
So for me, um, we're fairly established at this point. We take more than 10 calls a day. I'll put it to you like that way.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have time to text every person individually and remind them. I don't have the time to email them all to remind them for their appointment coming up. I don't have the ability, like I'm not going to go to 6 different Google calendars for maybe someone who works on the sales team or who maybe, I'm taking calls that day. Like I don't have the ability to manage that. I don't need to have 6 different Chrome calendar tabs open. I don't want to call, people who I don't have an existing business relationship with my personal phone number. I don't have like the time to email with all those people and follow up with them and text them all to follow up with them. What's cool about HighLevel is it does it all for you, so it saves you a lot of time. I really like the automated flows. And
Mhm.
um, here's something that I found is I follow something called the 3x3. And I know your audience is going to hate me. Well, the accountants who are listening are going to hate this because the idea of talking on the phone for sales with them is probably not super palatable, but it's what they need to do. So yeah, well, I'm just going to get that out there. But I set up something called the 3x3. And when somebody wants information from you, it will text them and email them every single day for the first 3 days and ask them to book a call with you. It'll do that for you.
Oh,
After
wow.
3 days, like, all right, like you can kind of, slow down, right? They're
I
probably
agree.
not interested after 3 days.
I agree.
Um, but it has a feature where it'll actually call my phone and and it says, you have a new lead, press 1 to connect. I press 1 and it'll call that person's cell phone. And so I don't have to like go run to my computer. Oh, I got a new application form. I got to go look at it. It's just boop, call. You go. Oh, pick it up. I'm going to do it. And that has been really powerful. I heard a story where 2 people had the exact same amount of leads for 1 month. One guy signed on 2 clients and one guy signed on 17 from the same group, same number of leads. The only difference is one guy did the 3x3 and the other guy just called them once and then they never appeared. And so I use software to do the heavy lifting for me. So the automated flows, absolutely my favorite thing.
Yeah. And that's why you're good at what you do, right? And that's why people trust you because you're doing it yourself. You've set it up for yourself. And the feature that you're mentioning, it's not an out of the box feature. This is something you have to set up, right, to
Mhm,
with the right timing, with the right settings. But it can be done. It can be
mhm.
done, and but I think the advantage of at least being aware of it is that you look forward to it, and then you get it set up for you. So walk us through here as we start to wrap this conversation up. When someone, what's the value of someone hiring you, right, as their coach, as their guide, as their trusted advisor, from
Mhm.
taking their business from brick and mortar, serving financial services, accounting or bookkeeping, CPA, to online? How do they benefit from your experiences?
Okay. So I'll put it to you like this. Started a remote fractional CFO firm in 2017. So it's 2024. So that's 7 years. You get to learn all the mistakes that I made and not do those. So that's number one. Uh, Number two is if you're looking to go from a local brick and mortar accounting firm, you're stuck with the same clients in your geography. Maybe they're not super happy paying some premium fees that you want. There's the whole saying like you can't be a priest in your hometown. You're like, oh, it's my local accountant. He's not a fractional CFO. Like you might have some of those weird beliefs. When you move to doing a remote, which was what we can show you, you're talking to someone who I shared this with you the other day, but I think between both businesses, we've had 852 appointments in the last 10 months. So maybe you don't want 852 appointments in the last 10 months. Maybe you want 3 a week, but if we figured out that, can we figure out to get you 3 new qualified appointments to grow your firm that are people who are interested, who are high quality and don't want to pay you $100 a month for bookkeeping, but want to pay you a lot more for fractional CFO? If that's what you're interested in, it's worth a conversation. If you want to be stuck in the old way, that's fine. You can stay there, and that's totally okay. But if you want to move to the new remote and online way, we are the best people to do it. No one else is better than us, and HighLevel is one of the things we use to get you there. And there's plenty of other things that we can show you. But if you're interested in some of the stuff we talked about, like the marketing and the personal branding, yeah, we're the best guide for that. So those are the people who I would say can benefit and, would be interested in working with us, and they can reach out. They can visit our website. It's just profitsearchgroup.com/call, or reach out to us on Instagram. But that's probably the best place to go if you're looking to build your own brand and move from the old way of brick and mortar to the new way of running a remote online accounting firm.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because, I think the biggest thing here is as folks are listening to this episode, maybe they came in with software in mind to build some better efficiencies. Maybe they are interested in taking away the tedious follow-up work with automations. But sometimes you can't just do that alone. You need the right support. And that's why we like to partner and have conversations with folks like yourself that are experts in your industries, because the people and the systems work the best. And Charles, it was amazing to have you with me here, and just listening to your story, you being a customer of ours, inspiring, sharing some of your actual action items that you take to our audience, has been fruitful to hear. As we start wrapping up here, is there any words of wisdom or advice you'd like to share to the audience before we wrap up?
Sure. So the number one thing is this took me a really long time to get started, right? In the beginning, I was thinking about entrepreneurship and how do I work for myself and how do I grow something online for like quite a while. And I got really lucky because I got pushed into it, right? I came to this by accident. And so if I were you, whether you're thinking about moving from the old way of brick and mortar accounting to owning a remote accounting firm, or maybe you're a business owner and you just want to like do something new or go more digital, or maybe you're like, oh, I want to start a business, is just try tomorrow, right? Maybe you want to create a personal brand, just try tomorrow. You're going to do a bad job. You're going to fail tomorrow. That's okay. But you're going to fail your way to success. And so you're going to make a mistake and you're going to fail and you're going to learn. And if you just think, all right, if you don't give up, you're always going to get to your result. It's just a function of when, not if. My advice to you is just try something new, kind of scary every day. And at the end of a year, you'll look back in a year or two and you'll be like, oh my gosh, look how much I've grown. And so I got lucky because I got pushed into it by accident. That may not happen for you, so push yourself into it. So I would try something new. That's my biggest thing. Accountant, business owner, someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, just give it a shot. Try something new.
Thank you so much for those words. You've been generous enough to put an offer together, some information, a little bit about you, an opportunity for folks to connect with you. We're going to include that link below in the description here. For our audience that have been tuning in, if you are not yet a HighLevel user, there'll also be a link down there to learn more on how to set up your trial. And if you're interested in some of our future events, connecting with Charles himself, there's more information there as well. To those that have been tuning in, thank you so much. Charles, thank you. And I'm looking forward to staying in contact. And for our audience, we'll see you on the next one. Have a great one. Take care.
Hey, thanks.